There is a podcast that lies between the imagination of two simple-minded earthlings. Travel with these two longtime friends, Jimbo and 80s E, as they attempt to explore the fifth dimension. Follow along with them as they take the key and unlock the door to the vast space between shadow and substance. This podcast is one of trivia, of insight, and of sounds and ideas from one of the greatest television shows ever produced. You are embarking on a timeless journey. There is your signpost up ahead. You are entering the tragedy of cinema's Twilight Zone.
Clown, hobo, ballet dancer, bagpiper, and an army major. A collection of question marks. 5 improbable entities stuck together into a pit of darkness. No logic, no reason, no explanation. Just a prolonged nightmare in which fear, loneliness, and the unexplainable walk hand in hand through the shadows. In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres. We will not end the nightmare, we'll only explain it. Because this is the Twilight Zone.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema, the Twilight Zone series. I'm your host, Jimbo.
And I'm your other host, 80Z. Glad to be back in studio together.
In person.
Right.
It makes it so much easier when we're together.
Yes,
we don't
much easier.
We don't lose or delete files, 80s.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. We'll make it one better this time.
Eric, I'm so excited. We finally come to one of my all-time favorite Twilight Zones,
right.
5 characters in search of an exit. You know how long I've been harping on this one, how awesome I do love this movie. And I told you the reason that I do like this movie is because back when I was at my grandma's house, when like the Memorial Day or Labor Day marathon would come on, there's 2 or 3 that always stuck out in my mind that got me hooked on the Twilight Zone. Obviously, one of the best ones is Eye of the Beholder. The reveal in that just always amazed me. And then there's this one. This one always, I believe this might be the actual first Twilight Zone I ever saw.
Oh, cool.
That I can remember. And it's just, I just love everything about it. And then, of course, William Shatner with the gremlin ripping off the airplane wings, always one that stuck out in my mind too. But that's why I like doing this podcast series, because there's some of these that I haven't seen in a long time or some I've never seen at all. So take it away.
All right. Without further ado, here we go. The Twilight Zone.
Never going to stop drumming.
Season number 3, episode number 14, entitled 5 Characters in Search of an Exit. This was directed by Lamont Johnson, and the teleplay, of course, was by Rod Serling. It's based on a short story, I believe, called The Depository, and I featured music in this particular episode. I guess there's some stock footage from 100 Yards Over the Rim that was reused in this episode. The original air date for this episode was December the 22nd, 1961. And you know what time that is now. That brings us to our favorite segment in our episode. The segment we like to call On This Day in History. All right, so for On This Day in History for December the 22nd, let's go all the way back to 1932. And I know this is one of Jimbo's favorites as well. The Mummy, directed by Karl Freund and starring Boris Karloff, is released in the U.S. It's the first mummy horror film. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting piece of trivia. And then let's move to 1965 in a movie that you guys have already covered here on the podcast called Dr. Zhivago. It's based on the novel by, I'm going to butcher this name, Boris Pasternak. I think I said it right. It was directed by David Lean. And it was starring Omar Sharif and Julie Christie, and it premiered in New York City in 1965, and that was for December 22nd. December 22nd, 1967, a few years later, The Graduate, an American comedy drama film directed by Mike Nichols, starring Dustin Hoffman and Anne Bancroft. It premieres, and it actually won a Best Director. I don't know if that was I don't know what award that was, but that was in 1968 here. I left that off, but famous birthday, December 22nd, 1915, Barbara Billingsley. And Jimbo, Barbara Billingsley.
Everybody's favorite mom, Leave It to Beaver.
That's right. Good job.
Okay, Eric, if you had to choose a TV mom to be your mom in real life, which one would you have chose?
Oh, she definitely would be up there. You put me on the spot once again.
Aunt B? You want Aunt B?
I think I'd take Elizabeth Montgomery and Samantha. I'd want her to be my TV mom. She was beautiful. All right. So, yes, of course, Barbara Billingsley. Barbara Billingsley, American actress. She was born December 22nd, 1915. Let's move to some baseball. December 22nd, 1948. Steve Garvey. He was an American baseball player who played for the LA Dodgers and San Diego Padres. He was born in Tampa, Florida in 1948. And then another baseball trivia piece, Connie Mack, the Baseball Hall of Famer, catcher, manager, owner, winner of World Series 1910, 11, 13, 29, and 1930, has the most managerial wins, losses, and games managed in MLB history.
Now I have a question.
Yep.
Now that they've integrated the Negro League into the baseball stars, does that still stand? Do you know?
That's a good question. Didn't have to, again, put me on the spot. I didn't have time to research that, but that would be something to...
And in all fairness, we are re-recording this. We already had it recorded about a month and a half ago, whatever, but we somehow lost the recordings.
Misplaced the MP3 file.
Right, so all this is new information I'm throwing at him.
That's all right. Maybe I'll add it on to the end if I find out that information. But Connie Mack, born December 22nd, doesn't give his year of his birth, so you know how those old timers are. Like sometimes, they don't have complete records on the birth, but I guess they just know the date here and not the actual year. But we do know that he was born in East Brookfield, Massachusetts, on December the 22nd. Let's go back to our episode and give a few more details on our episode here entitled 5 Characters in Search of an Exit. The total production cost for this episode was $54,736.51. So we're coming in right about average here for average cost for an episode. The dates of rehearsal for this episode, just 2, June the 5th and June the 6th of 1961, and 3 days for filming, June the 7th, 8th, and 9th of 1961. And Jimbo, I know you are just chomping at the bit to give us this cast list for this great episode, so take it away.
Just for the record, Eric, today is June 5th, so the rehearsal dates kind of add up. And also, cool. Connie Mack's birthday was December 22nd, 1862.
There you go.
So, there you go. 18, yeah.
It's going way back.
Yeah. Well, what would you say? You were born in 1976 or 77. Yeah. Now they're going to be like, whoa, that's so last century.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right, the cast, that's not a very big cast, but it's an important cast. So, we had Susan Harrison. She played the ballerina. She was in a movie called The Sweet Smell of Success in 1957. You had William Wyndham. He played the Major. He was in Escape from the Planet of the Apes, which we've covered on this podcast with Brett from the Evil Never Dies podcast, where he played the President. He was also in To Kill a Mockingbird and Uncle Buck, one of Eric's favorite, in 1989.
Absolutely.
Murray Matheson, to me, stole the show in this episode. He plays the clown. He was also in Twilight Zone, the movie, in 1983. You had Kelton Garwood. He was known as the Tramp. He was in a lot of the Magical World of Disney's from 1954. I couldn't write them all down. But he also starred in Gunsmoke. You had Clark Allen, the bagpiper. He was from the Twilight Zone as well. Then you had Carol Hill. She played the woman. She was in Romeo and Juliet in 1966. And you had Mona Houghton, who played the little girl at the end of the movie, or episode. She was in The Conversation in 1974. She was also in The Godfather Part 2. But more importantly, she's probably best known as being Buck Houghton's daughter in real life.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, you had Rod Serling, the narrator, co-host of The Twilight Zone. So, Eric, that concludes your short but important cast of The Twilight Zone.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to a plot for this episode. I'm going to use the preview that Rod gives from the previous week to preview this episode. It goes like this. Next week on The Twilight Zone, you'll find yourself inexplicably entangled in the dark dungeon. You'll meet an incredible group of people who, like you, will be quite unable to explain how they got there, why they got there, and how they're going to get out. At the end, we're going to belt you with one of the most surprising endings we've ever had. Next week, 5 characters in search of an exit on the Twilight Zone. So let's jump right in here. And the cinematography stands out right away.
Of course.
As the camera shoots a shot. The opening shot is like shot up at the moon, really, I guess. It would almost be like an astronomy shot, I guess.
Is it a moonlight?
It could be a moonlight. Right. That's right. So we meet the Major first. He's the first character that we meet. And the camera pans down the cylinder to the Major. He's sitting on the floor. He's confused, and his uniform is all disheveled and dirty and torn. And there are several shots, that up out of the cylinder that makes the person watching think that it could be like a moon shot, but we'll find out that later that in fact it wasn't. So the first thing he kind of does is he kind of feels around the walls. He's encased in this cylinder and he's banging on the walls until, and I'm going to pare this down and try to not drag the episode out too much, but he meets a clown who's the second character that we meet, and that's Jimbo's favorite character.
Absolute favorite character.
It's just a great piece of acting. I don't know what else to say. Murray Matheson, and I've got some more trivia about it. He played in the Twilight Zone, another episode in the Twilight Zone movie, and I'll come to that in a minute, but Matheson's first quote as the clown, well, this might not be his first quote, but it's the first quote that stuck out to me. He says, "Is there a circus around here somewhere?" This is the Major speaking. He says, "A circus? Yeah, there must be a circus. A clown, a circus, an officer, a war, but it doesn't figure at all. Not at all. Why not? Because there's no circus and there's no war, just like the rest of us. The rest of us?" And so they have this exchange back and forth, and that's one of the things I like about the episode is like the existential nature of the characters. Like no one knows how they got there, where they come from. They don't know anything about themselves or how they're going to get out, or they don't even know what they're in. Like they're trying to figure this out basically throughout the whole episode. And
to me, one thing that stands out in this one compared to other Twilight Zone episodes is the outfits, the attire. The clown with like the broken pottery thing on his head and his whole outfit. The Major being all disheveled in his uniform. You're going to come to meet some other characters. Just all their outfits really, really match their character. And I thought that was really well done, too.
Yeah. So the clown points to the other. We'll meet these other characters, the ballerina, and then there's a bagpiper and a hobo, or I forget what the other, they call him the tramp or the hobo. There's kind of interchangeable terms there. So then, and I've already sort of led up to this, but the Major asks those great existential questions. Who are we? Where are we? What are we? And how long are we going to be here? And then after he sort of summarizes those questions, then Rod's intro comes into play. And then the camera pans to the top of the cylinder. And again, we get kind of a series of clues as we go along with the cinematography. We kind of get some clues. So I'll just go ahead and move on to act number 2 and just highlight a few things in act 2. Here's, as we go past Rod's introduction, we got our standard title shot and, directed by and the credits and so forth. And then we come back down again to the bottom of this cylinder, and I did like the title shot with the quick scene change. I will point that out. There's a quick scene change where the Major is pounding on the cylinder wall. That transition there was pretty cool. And he's, again, banging all around the cylinder once again. And then the clown begins to sing the song to the tune of Old Lang Syne. And he says, "We are here because we're here, because we're here, because we're here." And he just keeps singing it over and over. Anything else, Jimbo, that really in act 2? I mean, again, it can't be expressed enough that Murray Matheson really kind of steals the show here.
Yeah, he does.
Even though when we come to some trivia, the ballerina, and her name's Susan Harrison, she demanded top billing. over everybody.
That's why I put her first on the cast list.
Which is interesting, and we'll get to that maybe in a little trivia later on. The Major's not satisfied. Again, he wants out. The bagpiper, he chimes in, and he's quoted, he says, "Second, but you're wasting your time, Major. Each one of us has gone around looking like a bloodhound." And the Major asks, "What's up there?" And then the clown says, "You name it. Sky, artificial light, fluorescent lamp, an illuminated microscope, you name it. One guess is as good as another." So that, again, that clues the watcher in, because you don't know where it's going. Like, as the watcher, you're pulled in, and you're sort of trying to answer those questions in your mind while you're watching. You like, how is this going to turn? You're trying to guess the Twilight Zone twist throughout the whole episode, and that's what I liked about it. It drew you in. So, like, each character sort of kind of gives their own interpretation of the surroundings. One suggests it's another planet on a spaceship, maybe insanity or a mirage, or we're dead, or this is just sort of limbo, and that we're dream figures from somebody else's existence. And then that it's determined, like, there's an infinite number of possibilities of what this could be, this situation that they're in. And again, it's just masterful, because your subconscious, as the watcher, it begins to try to solve the puzzle in the episode. Which scenario that the characters throw out, like, which one is the most plausible? As you, the watcher, you go, okay, well, it could be this. Which one makes the most sense? And so the hobo, again, he comments to the Major, for a long while, that's all we did. Speaking of, like, trying to get out and try to figure out a way out, he said, that's all we did. We hunted and searched and peered and looked and felt, and then we discovered that this was the universe right here. For all our purposes, this is the universe, this little room. And that's interesting, too, as human beings. Like, don't you think? Like, all we know is what we can see. We don't know the extent of the entire universe as it exists. I mean, we're on planet Earth, third planet from the sun, inside the Milky Way, inside of the Andromeda galaxy. Yeah, inside of the expansive universe. So I thought that was a really cool line there. Just then, a giant bell rings so loudly that it knocks everyone to the ground. And then the ballerina hints that maybe this group is involved. She hints the fact that there's a group that's involved with this. And the second act ends with the Major's dramatic words. And this is pretty dramatic words. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, it seems very apparent. It seems quite unequivocal. We, all of us, are in hell. God help us, we are in hell." So he's determined that they're in some sort of purgatory or hell, and there's no way out, and, they're trapped. So that's the decision that he's come to. We're at the bell scene now, where everyone's, like, plugging their ears, and then it eventually knocks them over. And again, just another clue for us of what the actual twist is. And then we come to Act 3. I'll skip over the ballerina's little dance. That was kind of cringy, actually, in the episode.
She's cringy in the whole episode, I believe. Eric, if you had to choose, who was your favorite character?
Everybody's going to say the clown. I don't know. I probably see more of myself, like, in the Major. Like, I would be trying...
Hot-headed? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that too. But, just trying to... Which, by the way, the traffic just getting over here. I don't know how you drive in the traffic. That's a sidebar for another day. I don't know how you... On the road with people like that for that many hours. It's crazy. But anyway... We end the Act 2, and then Act 3 basically is, if we had to summarize, it's like the acrobatics, right? They're trying to stand on each other's shoulders and get out of the cylinder. They come up with an idea, and there is some debate. Basically, the clown is like, this is pointless. Some people, but the Major basically kind of convinces everyone, hey, it's worth a try. So they all agree we'll try to stretch a little. You've got to try. That's one of his quotes. So the first time it's unsuccessful, right? So then what does the Major do?
He takes the sword from...
Right.
And then takes part of the clown's outfit, pulls it out, makes a big old long rope, ties it around the sword of... I don't believe it was his. It was the... was it the Tramps or the Bagpiper? It was one of them. He
makes like a sword, hook, right? Or
he puts on the sword and he can throw it over the top and hook it onto the edge.
That's right. I think on their first attempt, too, the bell tolls right when they're like at the top, and then they all fall to the ground. The second attempt was made without the ballerina, and then, as Jimbo just explained, they created like a hook with a sword that would be thrown
the hilt
over the
catches
side.
On.
Yeah. The side of the cylinder or whatever. And the second...
think of the old Batman from 66 with his batarang, and he throws it up somewhere and hooks it and climbs up the wall. That's exactly what they do. That's exactly
what I thought of when I was watching it the first time. So in the second attempt, he attaches the rope, and they're successful. They form a human tower again. The Major throws the sword over and climbs to the top, and he gets to the top, and the clown asks, "Well, what's up there?" And the hobo, "What do you see?" And the ballerina says, "Major, where are we?" And it sort of echoes from the cylinder floor. And then the Major falls over the side and lands, and what we discover, here's the big reveal, like a pile of snow. And then the four left in the cylinder are left to ponder the fate and wonder if the Major will come back for them. Then this is a cool transition. We cut right to the doll in the snow, and a little girl picks it up and taps the woman on the shoulder and says, "I found this in the snow. Someone must have dropped it." And the woman tells her to drop it in the barrel with the others. And then the camera sort of pans out, and we see a barrel with a sign that says, View Park Girls Home, ages 2 to 10, and it's their 17th annual Christmas doll drive. So all these dolls are being collected in a barrel, and the Major is just one of them being collected for the girls' home. And then there's a close-up on the bell that the woman is ringing, sort of like the Salvation Army buckets, right? They always ring a bell at Christmas time. And then the final shot, and I've got several trivia points about this final shot of the dolls in the bottom of the barrel with tears coming from the ballerina's eyes. So, pretty cool. Jimbo?
Very cool.
Any trivia from your end?
Let me
start us off.
I've got them bookmarked. I forgot. Let me go grab them if you want to keep going.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start with a few trivia points while you look for that. The title, 5 Characters in Search of an Exit, combines those of a play by an Italian writer named Luigi Pirandello. The title of his work was 6 Characters in Search of an Author, and the play by a French writer named Jean-Paul Sartre, and I believe that was entitled No Exit. So it was borrowed from those. I don't know if one was a literary work and one was sounds like one was a literary work and one was a play. A doll was specifically modeled after each actor for the final scene. So they took like face imprints or wax figures.
Kind of like Death Mask, if you will.
Yeah. So I'll give one more and then I'll throw it to Jimbo for his info out of his trusty, was it the companion book or maybe another book?
I have it's the companion.
So the producer, Buck Houghton's daughter, Mona, appears as the little girl in this episode. So Jimbo, tell me what you got.
All right, from my trusty Twilight Zone companion, 3rd edition, expanded and revised by Mark Scott Zickery. Here we go. It says, rarely can the plot of an episode be summed up so completely in its title. 5 characters in search of an exit, and a drama with the fewest possible of props. For most of the show, the 5 actors are all that can be seen, with the exception of the blank curving wall of the cylinder. It was like a theater experience, says director Lamont Johnson, like working on a unit set in the theater, and I've done a lot of theater, so it didn't hold any particular problems for me. As for the odd cylinder, Johnson says, the barrel was 2 different sets. One was vertical, and the other was horizontal, or at an angle, so that we could cant it and make it into whatever angle we felt we needed for the camera. Thus, when the characters stood on each other's shoulders, the set was actually tilted at a 45-degree angle, with a mattress at the bottom just in case anyone should accidentally slide down. As to what the set was made of, director of photography George Clemens says, It was a round aluminum set that we just kept moving around, and I could not use direct lighting. I used what we call indirect lighting, or reflected. I had a great big sheet that was treated so as to reflect light, which you can tell in this episode there's a lot of good camera work going on. But the greatest enjoyment from 5 characters in search of an exit stems from the dialogue between the ultra-serious, prone to hysteria Army Major and the ridiculous, ever-facetious, and utterly charming clown. In his white clown face with potted plant for a hat, Murray Matheson is delightful, doing somersaults and fatalistically refusing to ever take matters too seriously. I was upside down for most of the time, Matheson recalls, but I started as a dancer on the stage, and so that part of it was easy for me. As the Major, William Wyndham provides the perfect counterpoint to Matheson, loud, belligerent, and patient. Of the part, Wyndham says, I just poured on the coal. If you try to make it undoll-like as possible, as long as you can, which isn't hard to do because they're all sort of strange people. The people weren't the only strange thing. The dolls were too. As the camera pans from doll to doll at the end of the episode, we see that the figures are clearly not the actors in makeup, yet their faces bear a marked resemblance to the actors. One would assume that tiny replicas were fashioned, but in reality, these figures were actually life-size copies of the actors. With each of them, a life mask was made, then painted to look like a doll. Says makeup artist William Tuttle, they sent out and got some mannequin bodies so that we just did the heads. Charlie Schramm did most of them. For Buck Houghton, 5 characters in search of an exit held special anxieties. The little girl who placed the Army Major doll back in the barrel at the end of the episode was played by his daughter Mona. She was terribly nervous about the whole thing, he recalls, and she was a very active child in the first place. She spent her days in motion, so I just took her out and walked her around the back lot until she was so tired that she couldn't be nervous. I must have walked her 3 miles. Now, Eric, as I was reading that, something popped out to me. You are like the Major, and I'm like the clown, so this is like the perfect companion for me and you at the beginning of this.
We just need, 2 more people, right? We need a bagpiper, a hobo, well, 3 more.
A ballerina. Well, we don't need a ballerina. She can stay out. But something that that I thought about is if you've ever been out and around, especially like at Christmas time, and they're doing like a toy drive. Something that finally just clicked with me after numerous things is, yes, people donate toys, but a lot of times people take broken toys or toys that don't work anymore to like Goodwill, Salvation Army, whatever donation. And so I started thinking, okay, so you have this colonel, Army general, whatever, his clothes is maybe, he lost his tie, whatever. It's disheveled. The clown looks like he's out of the trash compartment. He's got like a broken pottery on top of his head. Maybe he was like one of them little trolls you stand outside in your yard or something. The bagpipe, maybe the bagpipe didn't play anymore. It was out of batteries. It rotted away. The ballerina, if you ever seen those old music boxes that you would open up and the ballerina would stand on her toe and swirl around, what happens after time? Doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting that I took some of those feelings from the toys like that you see, or you see at Goodwill if you ever go. And one man's trash is another man's treasure. So maybe a child that couldn't afford a brand new toy gets something like this. It's still going to show the love and everything that the toy will need, or the child will need. And then I also wonder, once Mona picked up the sergeant at the end, she just tosses him back in the barrel. He just throws him in. I was like, man, I hope he landed on the ballerina or a soft landing or something. Yeah. So that was just some of my thoughts as I was going through this.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'll just continue on with the more philosophical. This episode is often viewed as a rejection of an absurdist philosophy, with the characters initially ignorant to where they are at in the world and seem to be existing without meaning, but in the end, they do have a purpose, love, and that's sort of the encompassing theme, what you just touched on. Someone had enough care and love to donate, and what you use the expression, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Who knows that one of those little girls in that home would find one of those dolls and love it and keep it like for the
rest of her,
for the rest of her life.
A lot of these toys, they're not brand new.
Right, of course.
So I don't want to say it was given out of love. Parents are probably like, I told you to clean your room up.
Oh, right.
If you don't clean it up again, these are going in,
But someone else might take it and love it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So just going to give you a quick definition of absurdism. It's really the philosophical theory that the universe is irrational and meaningless. It states that trying to find meaning leads people into conflict with the world. So again, this episode is in stark contrast to absurdism and with people finding their place and their the purpose of love in the episode. So I like that deeper meaning too. That notches that episode up again. Just a couple more trivia points, and I'll try to skip over the ones Jimbo covered in his book. But the outdoor set for the toy barrel scene is the same in the same spot on MGM's Brownstone Street, where Dick York discovered his lucky charm in a Penny for Your Thoughts episode in season 2, and it's located on MGM's backlot number 2. The same city block is used numerous times throughout the series. On May 29th, 1961, The Depository was assigned a production number, and on May 31st, the title was officially changed to 5 characters in search of an exit. Let's see. Here's one reason why they changed the title of the original story, because as they explained it to me, they felt that it sounded too much like suppository. Peddle recounted. So he's the author of the short story. He said it was explained to him like they didn't want it to sound too much like suppository. Rod kept the story pretty close to how I had it. This is Peddle recalling again. He says pretty close to how I had it. I believe he took out one character, but it pretty much was the same as I had written it. I recall they were worried about how they were going to produce it. The vertical climb was a challenge for them, but I suggested that they build half the huge container and make it horizontal, and that is how they shot it. I wasn't on the set when they filmed it, but they took my suggestion and went with it. I never saw Sterling before that party, and I never saw him since. So I guess to go back, Peddle and Sterling met at like a Hollywood cocktail party, and they got to talking about this short story that Peddle sort of pitched it to him and followed up, and then Rod accepted it, and they went with it and made it a Twilight Zone episode. I also thought it was pretty cool that the author of the story suggested a cinematography shot on how they should do it, and they actually took a suggestion, so that'd be pretty cool. Considerable expense went into the construction of the barrel, but only half of it was required since the camera was positioned from the side facing the interior. But they reused it several times, and here this explains. After filming was completed, the barrel was stored at MGM for future productions. The outside of the half barrel was reused for the episode No Time Like the Past. It was placed upside down so Harvey could stand on top and operate the time travel controls, and we haven't come to that episode. I don't know if No Time Like the Past is in, maybe it's in season 4. I don't know if it's in 3 because I'm done watching all 3 and I don't remember that one. But
you jump ahead. I have to go in order.
But anyway, we'll come to it eventually. According to the production report for Daystar Productions, this barrel is used in the Outer Limits episode, The Inheritors Part 2. The barrel was altered so that it could be used as part of the spaceship being constructed. The same barrel was later cut down to size and again altered so it could be used in another episode of The Outer Limits. And that episode was entitled The Probe. So the last scene in this episode did not require the actors to lie still at the bottom of the barrel. Mannequins were used at the end of the sequence, designed to look exactly like the actors who played their counterparts, using masks furnished from the week before. So we talked about that already. There have been several nods to this classic Twilight Zone episode. Actor Murray Matheson, who played the clown, would later play the role of Mr. Agee in the Kick the Can segment of the Twilight Zone movie from 1983. I'm trying to remember who Mr. Agee is in Kick the Can. Is he the main character, the old guy?
Old guy, yeah,
okay.
I do believe. We'll be covering that pretty soon.
Yeah. Yep, we will. The same concept would be explored in Child's Play and an episode of Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense, initially telecast in May 2nd, 1986. And this episode was involving a family of robot dolls who discover that they are trapped inside of a dollhouse. I'm going to have to check that out. This Twilight Zone episode was supposedly an inspiration for the 1997 motion picture Cube. And then finally, it's referenced, this is for Lamont Johnson, this trivia piece. It says, in Help for the Lovelorn, which that's an episode of the television series Felicity, initially cast on January 23rd, the year 2000, A direct takeoff of this Twilight Zone episode and the Chaser episode was featured in a loving tribute. Director Lamont Johnson took the helm. The entire episode was presented in black and white, featuring the Twilight Zone style screen credits and music commonly heard in the Twilight Zone. So if anybody's interested, they can go check out that series Felicity and look for those, or that one episode. It was directed by Lamont Johnson.
Yeah, and there was also Rod Serling. He bet that no one could figure out the ending of this episode. Nobody could figure out the twist. So he was actually taking a lot of bets, I guess, on the side. But nobody ever guessed he won all the bets. So.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah.
So that concludes all the trivia I got. Unless you've got any more, tell me your thoughts, feelings.
Well, I will in a second, Eric. But first of all, I remember you saying you figured out why you hated this episode so much, because this is one that I've been raving about for months and months and months, and Eric's like, that was stupid, I hated it. So, Eric, why don't you tell the audience why you thought that this episode was so terrible, which you've changed your mind on, but why did you think this is... Let's hear it.
I forgot. In the first recording, I told the story. Okay, so what happens is my traditional mode of operation is like I'll watch a Twilight Zone on my iPad on Saturday night before I go to sleep. I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes. And so what happened is I basically watched the first quarter to half of the episode and then fell asleep. And then basically my subconscious wrote the ending of the episode. And if I remember correctly, I dreamed that they were all trapped in like an hourglass, and it was in like a library, and that a cat knocked over the hourglass and shattered, the glass, and all the characters spilled out onto this like table or counter, and I can't remember what happened from there. But anyway, I had this whole elaborate thing where I had written the end of the episode. I was like, that stinks, man. Like, I didn't like this at all. And then after going back and watching it while being totally sentient and awake, I was like, oh, well, no wonder it sucked, because I wrote the ending to this episode. And this ending is much better once I actually watched it. So,
although your ending sounds pretty entertaining, that would be a nice twist, of being in an hourglass and knocked off. That'd be weird.
So like the whole time I thought it stunk because, of course, I was the writer. And so, it moved up. And Jimbo and I went back and forth like, no, this thing stinks. I don't know why you like it so much. And that was the reason why.
He finally had to eat crow when he told me.
Funny story,
It's really good. All right, so I'll go first. Obviously, this is one of my favorites, so I'm going to try to be partial, I guess, or unpartial. The characters in this, the development of the characters is outstanding. The use of light and shadows is outstanding. The clown alone is worth several points in this whole rating system. The twist is superb. It's one of the best in Twilight Zones. I really loved it so much. And obviously, it stuck enough with me as a kid that I still feel the same way today about it. So I want to give this a 10. I don't know if I can. I will give it a 9.5 though. Because I think after Eye of the Beholder, this is probably my favorite Twilight Zone. This will probably be in my top 10 at the end of the season. I just think it's one of the better episodes of Season 3 so far that we've watched. And who knows, it may be in my top 10 of all time once we cover at the very end of all the Twilight Zones that we covered, which we're over halfway right now. So, to me, 9.95, almost perfection in my book. To young Jimbo, it's definitely a 10. To an older Jimbo, it's probably 9.95 just because of the ballerina. I hate her so much. And she doesn't deserve top billing. She was kind of not really that important in the whole realm of things of this anyway. So that's my take on it, Eric.
All right. Well, we're going to agree once again. This is one of the best in Season 3 so far. One would be hard-pressed to say that it wasn't in the top tier of the Twilight Zone twists of all time. Like, Eye of the Beholder in this. That's where I rank them so far. I love the existential nature of the episode. It's asking those big questions. I love that about the episode. Those are my favorite type of Twilight Zone episodes, the ones that ask those big questions. And then I wonder, Did possibly Disney and Toy Story steal or borrow some ideas or get inspiration from this episode? I think there are a lot of parallels and similarities in the Toy Story saga, if you will, if our audience is familiar with those. And then, yeah, I talked about this already, how my subconscious mind rewrote the ending of the episode, and that's why I didn't think very highly of it at first. I have since changed my
So what was you ranking it before?
Oh, I don't even know. It probably would have been like a 5 or a 6, but IMDb gave it an 8.5. I'm going to bump it to a 9.
Ooh, look at this.
Well, Eye of the Beholder for me was a 9, I think is what I said, so it's probably like an 8.9. So it's just a notch under Eye of the Beholder. My prop piece.
Oh, yeah, we forgot the prop piece.
That I'm going to take is the bell. And then I have a question here. Jimbo, do you remember the 4th grade bell choir in our school?
Oh, yeah. Middle C. You wanted that yellow bell, baby. It had the most rings alone.
That's right. C did get the most notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always got stuck with the one at the very end that only had like 2 per the whole
8,
song. Yeah.
The high note?
The 1 or 8, whichever one only had like 2 because I was not very, you know me, I'm not very musically inclined, unlike my wife who's like a prodigy.
Yeah, really.
But my prop piece, I've got to take the clown hat, the pottery on top of the clown hat. I just think it is hilarious.
That's a good choice.
It reminds me, well, number one, he kind of reminds me of the Joker from Batman 66. This was done before that, so did they Cesar Romero draw some inspiration from this? I think you can see that.
Yeah.
But it also reminds me when he has it on his head, if you remember in The Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion takes that pot and knocks it off, puts King of the Forest and puts it on top of his head. Kind of gives me that vibe too.
Yeah.
So, well, once again, we finally have coming to the end of this. Stay tuned for next week. We have a very special episode with a very special guest.
That's right.
Mr. Jason Bond in person. We'll be talking about the episode, The Quality of Mercy.
Yeah.
You guys will not want to miss that. He is a very funny guy.
Yeah, he's becoming an integral part of our podcast.
Yeah.
So
he is a author, and he's going to be doing some stuff upcoming with some of the soundtracks for the movies we talk about. Not everyone, but the ones that are important. So we can't wait for you guys to hear him and listen to him. He's a great guy. So. Well, with that being said, I think this episode's coming to a close, and that's a wrap.
And cut.
Just a barrel. A dark depository where are kept the counterfeit make-believe pieces of plaster and cloth wrought in the distorted image of human life. But this added hopeful note, perhaps they are unloved only for the moment. In the arms of children, there can be nothing but love. A clown, a tramp, a bagpipe player, a ballet dancer, and a major. Tonight's cast of players and the odd stage, known as the Twilight Zone.